George spent $30 million to buy out all the supplies in the supermarket. Then he silently recited a spell, and the next second, all the supplies in the warehouse were sucked into his watch. After that, he spent another $50 million to rent a villa, because this villa not only had a vault-level security system, but could even resist external damage. Even intruders could easily be captured and transported outside. And the reason George did this was because he accidentally gained the special ability to foresee the future. It turned out that 3 days later, the global temperature would plummet and the world would face an unprecedented cold wave. 99% of humanity would die in this disaster, and George's family was fortunate enough to survive. But in the extreme cold, supplies were scarce, especially food and water. Helplessly, George had to go search for supplies alone. However, his ungrateful adopted brother Jack actually secretly ate behind the family's back. When George discovered it, he still refused to admit it, and George even gave him a beating. When the family heard the commotion, they rushed over. Jack then staged a play on his own, claiming outright that George not only stole food, but also wanted to trade the family for supplies. Hearing this, the whole family began to accuse George, and they didn't even listen to his explanation, insisting on driving George out of the house. No matter how George begged, he couldn't awaken his parents' love. And so, George was thrown out and froze to death in the extreme cold. In the end, the family even used George's body to trade with the mob boss for a bag of chips to fill their stomachs, and George became the mob boss's food. Unexpectedly, in the next second, his consciousness returned to real life. At this moment, his parents were scolding him. It turned out Jack had deliberately ruined their father's $10 million painting and framed George for it. So George was punished by the whole family. And the reason Jack did this was just to drive George out of the house, so that as the adopted son, he could inherit their billionaire father's fortune. Looking at this vicious family before him, George swore he would make them pay the price. Then, in front of everyone, he taught Jack a lesson and even cut ties with his family. But when he walked out of the house, he realized he was penniless now, with no money at all to buy supplies. Just when George was at a loss, he suddenly thought of a good idea. He immediately called his good friend William and arranged to meet him at the bank entrance, planning to use his car and house as collateral to borrow money from the bank. After all, once doomsday came, the money wouldn't need to be repaid. But when he said this, William was instantly shocked and immediately stopped George. Then George told William about the disaster he had foreseen. Before the disaster arrived, what they had to do was prepare supplies, otherwise everyone would die. But William thought George was joking. Seeing the other didn't believe him, George had no choice but to tell him that in 5 seconds, a tragic plane crash would happen, and the whole internet would report the news. This would be the beginning of doomsday. But just as he finished speaking, William thought George had a fever and burned out his brain. But George ignored him and simply started counting down. Sure enough, just as he said, the news really reported that an international passenger plane had crashed and all the passengers on board had died. Only then did William realize George was telling the truth. Then the two of them went to the bank to borrow $100 million. At this point, there were still 2 days left before doomsday. George brought William to rent the villa with the best security system. The landlord carefully introduced his villa to them. Not only did the main gate have multiple password protections, but even explosives couldn't blow it open. Then, he ordered his men to demonstrate it in front of them. Sure enough, after the explosion ended, the gate was still intact. Even the materials used to build the villa were materials that could resist shockwaves and nuclear radiation. The equipment inside was also the most advanced in the world. George and the others could live here for 100 years without any problem. Even supplies and surveillance equipment were all available. But George was still worried about what if someone forced their way in. Unexpectedly, the next second, the landlord showed him his design. After capturing intruders, a powerful suction device would transport them outside. With such an emergency defense system, George no longer had to worry about outsiders breaking in. So he decisively rented the landlord's super safe house. He then even hired a top bodyguard for himself. In this way, the problem of the safe house was solved. The next thing George and William had to do was buy supplies. But just as the two of them arrived at the supermarket entrance, they ran into George's adopted brother, Jack. As soon as they met, Jack humiliated George. But George wasn't about to tolerate him and immediately struck back. Seeing himself lose face in front of his friends, Jack immediately ordered his men to teach George a lesson. But unexpectedly, their father suddenly arrived and stopped him. When he saw his father, Jack instantly changed his face, saying he just happened to run into George and was persuading him to hurry home. Unexpectedly, their father didn't intend to acknowledge George as his son. Hearing this, George didn't want to say much more to them. He only told them that doomsday was coming soon, and if they wanted to survive, they should quickly prepare supplies. Just as he finished speaking, a strange phenomenon appeared in the sky. A dead crow fell from the sky. George told everyone this was the omen of doomsday's arrival, but his father didn't believe in any doomsday, and even Jack's friends thought George's brain was broken, saying crazy things like that. Seeing they didn't believe, George didn't say more and just left with William. After that, the two of them frantically started shopping in the supermarket, almost emptying it out. This scene directly stunned everyone present. However, after checking out and coming out, the two of them ran into a problem. With so many supplies, they were worried they couldn't take them all at once. Just as George was at a loss, a box of supplies suddenly disappeared into thin air. This scene directly shocked the two of them. Recalling the moment earlier, George instantly felt that something was wrong with his watch, so when he checked it, it also mysteriously disappeared.